Hi friends, it's Deanna here today, and today we're going to be working on the cinched top. This cinched top is super cute. It's got a cinched side which goes shorter and then a longer side that goes down on the other side. It's got different options for necklines. It's got a V-neck, a scoop, and a cowl neckline. Today we're going to be working on the cowl neckline, and let's get it started. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to have to tell you is when you're cutting this pattern, make sure that you pay attention, because the pattern is supposed to be mirrored, which means that the two fabrics should face each other. Either the wrong side should face each other or the right side should face each other. But the neckline is different, so you will have to cut. What I did is I cut my back neckline first, and then I cut out the back neckline and cut my front, cut out the back neckline off of my pattern. And you're like, twice you cut out your back? Anyway, and then I cut out my fabric with the lower neckband for whatever option neck length you want to use. But you got to remember that one is going to be face up and the other one's going to be right on top of it. So they're going to face right sides together. Because if you don't, then you'll have your right sides together and one side will be lower on the one side and the other one will be longer, and that will not work. The second thing you need to do is go ahead and mark your cinch marks. There are marks on the pattern, so you can go ahead and put a pin or a clip or mark it with water soluble pen or anything like that that you want to do. So now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hem our top bottom. The reason why we want to go ahead and hem it now is just easier to do it now than to do it later. We're going to hem this long curved edge ½ inch. When I get to the curve, all I do is I just kind of pull it a little bit and make it do its thing. And we're going to steam it, so that's what I like to do. What do you do? Do you pin when you're sewing, or do you just steam, or what do you do? Depending on the fabric, like for this one, I'll probably add a couple clips just because it's rib knit, so like it'll flip down. It won't stay right there where it's a turn. But sometimes if it's straight, I won't even pin it. So we're going to go ahead and hem both of these together. And then the bottom part, so we're going to hem that curve and then the bottom, and we're just going to fold it right up and hem it straight. We're going to do that for both the front and the back piece. Alright, so I'm going to go hem that. I'm going to be using my cover stitch to hem that, but if you don't have a cover stitch, any kind of stretch stitch or double needle or even some stretch thread straight stitch on your sewing machine will do the trick. You know, I like to do everything all at once, so I'm going to go ahead and work on my sleeve a little bit now, get it prepped to sew. That way I'm over here at my cover stitch sewing my hem, and then I'll bounce over to my serger and sew the sleeves on. So what I'm going to do is I marked my front of my sleeve, so I already know which one my front and my back are. The pattern has the markings on it, so if you didn't mark it, you can go back and look. But really the back of the sleeve is the longer side because the back goes higher than the front. And being that this is a raglan style, that sleeve goes up higher on the back. So I'm putting it right sides together on the back, and I'm gonna sew. You can go ahead and go sew now these ones, or if you are like me and you like to kind of go ahead and do everything all together, and I've seen a couple of you tell me that that's what you do now, so let me know if that's what you do. But I don't know why. I guess I'm lazy. I don't want to move around too much. I just like, let's get it all done, and then I'll go over there and sew it. And then what I'm gonna do is grab my bodice, basically put it right on top, so that my sleeve front is right on top of my bodice, right sides together. And pin. So then now I'm going to go over to my, I can go to my cover stitch and hem, and then step right over to my serger and sew my sleeves on. Let's do all that. To turn, I usually hold down on my my tension release, and then I just pull a little tiny bit and then I turn and go the other way. I just pull enough that I can turn my fabric. Instead of going off and coming back, I just don't trim my threads. I just kind of turn it, and then I keep going to the other side. For a more up-close view on my cover stitch, you can go, we have a video on my actual cover stitch and how, little things about it, how I thread it, how it works, and all that stuff, so you can go check that out. Now my sleeves are on, and I'm gonna put my top right sides together, and we're gonna go on the long side. We're gonna sew your sides together. So we're gonna match up that long side, raw edges together, right sides together, and we're gonna sew that side up all the way down the sleeve and all the way down to your hem. Really make sure that your lines line up at the bottom. Your hem lines up when you're sewing it, because then we'll tuck in that serger tail, but your seams, they need to match right here. So make sure that that matches when you're sewing it up. Now we're gonna work on the other side as well, but if you want to go ahead and sew that up first and then come back to this side, you can do that. Now if you are using your sewing machine to sew this top, then you can go ahead and just sew all the way to your mark. So make sure you match up your shirt. Actually, if you're using your sewing machine, you could sew all the way down to the hem. Shh, my iron, so loud. But at a 3/8 seam allowance. But if you're using your serger, what we're going to do is we're going to sew from the top, from your sleeve, all the way down to an inch away. So here's my mark where I put my mark. Go an inch up from my mark so that we don't even come close to it, okay? What happens is, oh, you know what? I'm gonna do it on the other side because I'm gonna be sewing the other way. I don't wanna miss it. We want to make sure that we stop far enough in advance that we can work on our cinch ties, because not ties, our side, because this side is going to be, we're going to sew it with the sewing machine, because we're going to need this allowance to be able to open up to sew our casings in, so we can put in our tie through there. If you serge all the way down, then you won't, a serger sews it together, so you won't be able to open up that hem, that seam allowance. So we're gonna serge all the way down to where that 1 inch seam is, and then from then on, we're gonna go ahead and sew a straight stitch, a stretch stitch on your sewing machine, and at a 3/8 seam allowance. So that way we have opportunity to open that for a casing. All right, now for the rest of the way from that where we stopped all the way down, we're going to use either a stretch stitch, or for me, I'm going to be using, if you have some, go ahead and use that, or if you want to go grab some, I'm using some stretch thread so I can do a straight stitch with it. It is actually pretty cool, and there's actually a review on our page about it, so you can, try it if you want to. So I'm going to go all the way down to the edge with a 3/8 seam allowance. All right, now we can go over to our iron, I can't say the word, and we're going to, meaning sometimes I do it with just my pins if you are not a steamer, and we're going to put these down, these seam allowances, because we're going to go back and stitch over those seam allowance to make it go straight down and create a casing. And we're going to stop over here where my cinch tie mark is, which is like an inch below that, and go all the way on one side and then do it on the other side. I'm doing again that straight stitch because of the fact that it's a stretch fabric, a stretch thread. But if you don't have stretch thread, you can use a zigzag stitch or any kind of whatever stitch you use to sew on your knit fabric. Also, keep in mind that you will be able to see the thread on the other side. So keep a color, use a color that will contrast with your, not contrast, that will work with your fabric as well. All right, now you have those casings on there where we're gonna go ahead and when we're done with our cinch ties, we're gonna be fitting them through there to make that cinch side. All right, now I'm prepping my ties by folding them right sides together, and I'm gonna sew them right sides together, that raw edge on the one side. Alrighty, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ties. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go over to my serger again and make sure when I sew my sides, I really sew my sides, so I'll have to fix that. Happens to me all the time because I try to sew too fast. So I'm just gonna put it right over it and stretch it out and sew it. Okay, but I'll do that at the same time as I'm doing something else because that's not gonna take me one trip. So we're gonna grab our ties and we're just gonna turn them. So I didn't mention this, but if you're doing the cowl, you're gonna do the same thing to your cowl ties as you did for these ties. So you can do that at the same time as well. So they're prepped and ready. I am going to, like I said earlier, going to be working on the cowl, but if you are working on any other type of neckbands, you can go find more info on how to do a V-neck in one of our videos. I'll try to tag that. And then also on how to do a regular band. So if you are having an issue with that and you say, I need some help, we got you. We have videos on that. So I'm trying to get this turned around, but it does not want to. So yeah, so go check that out so you can get some help on there. I'm gonna over here fighting with this thing. Get it turned around. Got it. All right, so now I'm gonna go through the casing I made and I'm gonna pull one up and then the other one on the other side. So one on each side. Okay, I've worked with this thing before and I've told you all before when I work with it, you need to make sure that this little clippy thing there's like a little clip that sticks up. You need to make sure that it goes over and covers that part or it makes it very difficult to use, and I always forget to do that, so then I end up getting stuck. Like right now, I'm gonna do it again. Needs to stay down. Go all the way through. See, it came through because it has that pokey side. All right, then I'm going to bring it all the way through and I'm going to pull them out about just like a ½ an inch out. Make sure that they're even. And then I'm going to go back to my sewing machine and sew a tack stitch. So I'm going to tack it down right here. So like back and forth right here at the top, and then I'll trim the leftover tie piece and be done with the tie. And then the side, I have to trim all these little threads and we are done. So when I'm going to do the rest of it, I'll go ahead and do that at the same time, where I'm going to I'll cinch it and tie it. I don't want to do it yet because I haven't sewn that top together yet. Then for our neckband, like I said, if you're doing any other kind of neckband, you can go ahead and check those out. But oh my goodness, this is gonna be so cute. Let's see, this is the front. Look at that. It's already looking cute. All right, but I'm going to work on the cowl. So my straps, I'll do the exact same way. My cowl, first off, I'm going to hem the top of my cowl. So fold it down ½ an inch and hem just like we hemmed the side. While you're hemming this cowl, you can go ahead and hem your sleeves because that also is another step that you are going to have to do. So I might do that at the same time. While I'm waiting for my iron to heat up, I'm just trimming some of these little serger tails. Oh, let me tell you too. I don't know if I have. Yes. So for your serger tail that ended up at the bottom of your dress, right here, you can use one of these big needles and tuck it into that seam allowance, that serger seam allowance, and tuck it right through there. That's what I do a lot of times. Or there's other ways to hide that, and we do have a video on that as well. So you're wondering, if you're wondering, and there it is, tucked in nice and tight. All right, so let's go ahead and hem our cowl. After we hem it, I'll show you when I go over to my sewing machine. But one side, we're going to put it right sides together, the cowl. One side, we're going to do with we gotta do it with a sewing machine. And we're gonna do it the same way that we did the casings on your top, on the side. We're gonna do the same way. We're gonna do a 3/8 seam allowance stitch all the way down on that one side. And then on the other side, you can do it with your sewing machine as well, or you can just go ahead and serge it. So that's what we're gonna do. One side we'll serge and the other side we'll just sew it with the allowance all the way down, because that's where we're gonna fit the ties through. And Bo is going crazy. I know you all haven't heard him in a while, but he's barking away. So if you can hear him barking, he's trying to say hello to the neighbors. So first I'm going to do that tacking down of my cinch ties on my top. I just basically went back and forth, and then I'm going to trim them. And they are good to go. So on the other side, we'll just have that tacking stitch, and gotta trim all these little pieces that are everywhere because I went back and forth. Okay, and then now you can just tighten it as much as you want and tie your tie for your side. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and work on our cowl, and we're gonna do the same thing on the one side. Like I said, that stitch. We're going to go ahead and open it up. You can go steam it or whatever you want, and then we're going to go to a 1/8 stitch just like we did on our top sides, and go all the way to create that casing. Alright, then we're going to grab our ties and do the same thing that we did on the dress. We're going to fit them right through. Well, yeah, we can go ahead and do that, but I'll show you better when we get over there. We're going to go ahead and sew this other side as well now. You can just do everything all here at the sewing machine. I was going to sew the other side on my serger, and then I thought, I just can do it here on my sewing machine. It's fine. While I'm over here already. So that other side is done as well. So then after I tuck in my tails, let me go ahead and do it. I was gonna wait to do it, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it so then we can baste those tails at the top, just like we did on our top. Put that tack stitch. All right, so now we can go ahead and baste that down so that when we go to sew the cowl on, it doesn't move on you before you put it on it. I'm just basting it on. All right, and we can tie these to kind of get them out of the way. I'm just trimming these. I did go back and forth on this one, so that way they won't come undone. But there's my tie. I'm just gonna tie them so they're out of the way, and then I'm gonna show you how you're gonna attach them to your top. All right, cowl time. I'm gonna put my cowl right up my dress, my top. Oh my goodness, I don't even know what it is. And I'm gonna actually turn my cowl right side out. And you're gonna be like, what? Yes, right side out. And then I'm going to fit my cowl right inside of my top. And then I'm gonna decide where I want my cinch tie. Do I want it on the left or the right? So I'm gonna go with this side right here. And I'm going to put that tie right where my seam is for my front of my top. And then this seam for the back, this back seam over here, I'm gonna put that on the back seam of my the back seam of my sleeve on the other side. So this is the front of my sleeve on this side, and then the other seam is on the back seam of the sleeve on the other side. Then we're gonna match up those raw edges, and we're going to sew that cowl right on. Sew it on. I'm gonna go use my serger to sew it on. And then we'll be done. So again, the right side of the cowl is touching the wrong side of the dress. I know this, the top. I keep saying dress. And this is a little bit different than we usually do our neckbands. We do our neckbands right sides together. This time you're going wrong side to right side. So you can be a little bit confusing, but no worries, you're doing it right. All right, so now that it is sewn on, you will see the stitches from the outside, but you will fold the cowl out to fit actually over those stitches. So this is how the cowl will actually fit, just like this. So right over. The ties, you can go ahead and trim that tie. I don't know where I put my scissors. They're over here, I think. Yep. Trim, and then you can just like make a little knot at the end. That's what I like to do. Of your tie, so that they are nice and tight, like they won't come off. Well, they shouldn't come off because they're sewn in the top. But that is it. That is all there is to this. It was easier than you thought, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please let me know if you have any questions about anything that I did. Comment, like, share, subscribe. Come follow us on Instagram and Facebook if you haven't. And so you can show us what you're making, and you can inspire us with your makes, and you can be inspired by the makes of others. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!